Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 1-hour meeting about sustainability in construction. My name is Bart, and I run Polish Business Link since 2010. So that's over 10 years of working with communities. So today's event is about sustainability, about construction, a little bit of background about why we are actually talking about this subject. So we have amongst our members and partners quite a lot of people involved in the construction industry, and what we want to do, we want to empower businesses to be more sustainable, but also help them to get new technology, new ideas amped in their business to be more sustainable. I actually brought something that for me is quite a bit sustainable. I'm actually about to travel to London, and I've got this bottle, exactly. So the world has changed already, and I remember before pandemic, I was heading to the airport, getting my plastic bottles, and then I throw them to the bins. Things have changed, and I live in Edinburgh. So in Edinburgh, when you actually pass the gates, there is a place where you can actually fill really good Scottish water in your bottles. So our behavior has changed. So obviously our company's behavior needs to change. We have together with Witold, we have put in motion of sustainability amongst our members. We try to talk with as much businesses as possible, and throughout 2021 we ran the survey 2021 and early 2022 about sustainability, and today's discussion is number one, to give you a little bit of insight what we learned out of our survey, our interviews, but also the second bit, we have Olivia on a call who will share a little bit of practical insights, what the business did for sustainability, what was the outcome, and where we're heading to. So welcome, thank you very much, and I'd like to now ask Witold to start the conversation and to start presentation about sustainability and give us a little bit of fresh ideas and also results of our survey. Witold.
Thank you, Bart. Thank you very much. Okay, let's talk about sustainability in the business. Some people say, oh, I don't believe in climate change, or I don't care, it's not about now, it's about the future. Okay, this is the Parana River. This is the Parana River, the second largest river in South America. In the last year, the water level was the lowest since 1944. It's because the drought in Brazil, which scientists attribute to climate change. The Parana River is one of the main trade waterways in South America, thanks to which people can export, among other grains. And the export is worth about 20 billion per annum in USD. What is the cost for now? Vessels had to reduce their tonnage by approximately 20% to continue moving. That means transport costs are increasing. That means food prices increases as well. So we all are impacted by these changes directly or indirectly right now. If this case is not convincing enough for you, I would like to highlight that we all, I'm talking about the business owners, will be affected soon by policymakers. Actually, the policymakers' actions are happening right now. Some industries will be hit more, some less, but we all will have to adapt to the legal requirements. My thinking is that those who start earlier have a chance to build competencies in business sustainability that will allow them not only survive in the business, but also use the situation to thrive and grow. By the way, we have interviewed some senior leaders of construction SMEs. I will tell you later more about it. And 40% provided some first examples of the policy changes which force them to change something in their business right now. Additional 20% said that they know some other construction companies which had to change something in their business. Okay, let's briefly define sustainability and circular economy, as I'm going to use these terms in many times today. Sustainability is basically about fulfilling our needs now without compromising the needs of the future generations. Circular economy is a model of production and consumption, one of the approaches which can help us with the development of a more sustainable economy. The old linear economy works like take, use, and waste, and consume more. Circular concept, it's basically about creating a system to close the loop and minimize the use of resources and to minimize the creation of waste and pollution. Sustainability in business can show up in different ways, starting with digitalization, show social innovations, adapting new technologies and circular practices to sustainable business models. Basically, everything which takes into account people, planet, profit can be seen as a sustainable solution. When I say people, I'm talking about people in the company and outside the company. When I say planet, I'm talking about the nature. And when I say profit, I'm talking about the business growth. Okay, so why are we interested in construction? If you look at the different reports about industries, about waste, CO2, energy usage, and so on, construction is often somewhere on the top. Don't get me wrong, the construction companies are not guilty by themselves. It's about the way how we shape our economy. We build a linear economy, take, consume, waste. We have done it everywhere, but for now, construction is quite high in the statistics. That simply means the policymakers have to look at the construction as an industry and plan some interventions, for sure. SMEs are the key. Why? SMEs are one of engines of sustainable socio-economic growth, jobs creations and development in the Europe. In the UK, micro companies and SMEs represent nearly 99.9% of the total businesses. They employ most of the people in the private sector. At the same time, SMEs are more vulnerable to disruptive changes in comparison with larger enterprises. So if you would like to seriously deal with the climate change by transforming our economy, we need to find a way to help SMEs to be more sustainable. Okay, but what are the benefits in sustainability for SMEs, for us? Research suggests that sustainability creates a large market for construction companies. This is like a big market opportunity. But also, developing more sustainable operations creates competitive advantages for organizations. So, okay, we know sustainability is beneficial for the construction businesses. And at the same time, we know SMEs are struggling with it. When Bart, Kowalczyk, and I approached this issue, we ask ourselves a question: what are the blockers and the enablers of sustainable transition of SMEs, specifically construction SMEs? We have been researching it since mid-2021 to beginning of 2022. Our methodology, how we research this, we have done, let's say, limited desk research. Limited, I'm not an academic, I'm a practitioner, so I didn't have the access to all scientific research. But we had a good read about blockers and enablers of SME growth, about sustainability matters in SMEs, about circular practices. We also organize a quantitative research to try to capture the bigger picture. We organized the pool. The pool was open for all people willing to provide us the feedback. So the pool is not representative for whole sector. And there was 114 people interested about this pool. Also, to get more qualitative insight, we conducted in-depth interviews with people from construction. The recruitment again was open, so the sample is not representative compared to whole industry, but we talked with 11 construction leaders, mainly business owners from the whole supply chain, from architect, builders to supply companies. They all represent SMEs, size from, let's say, 20 people to 250 people company. We spent over 40 person hours just doing interviews and then summarizing them to capture the learning. You will be able to see how the data collected by various methods converge in one place. Okay, let's start with the question from the pool. In case of sustainability in construction, we can talk about at least two things. Yes, we can talk at least about two things. We can talk about how sustainable are operations of the component, that is the option A, and how sustainable technologies are used during the process of designing and building, and that's the option B. So we ask construction people about what is interesting for them. Interestingly enough, majority of responses shows that construction companies would like to work on both aspects. As we have limited time, we can share only summary of our findings. Let's talk about the most interesting and the most common ones. Let's start with some blockers to understand better the challenges, and then talk about enablers to try to find opportunities for us. First of all, we need to highlight the importance of business owners and senior managers for sustainable transitions. Look, most SMEs have one main goal: to survive. And in most companies, there is a person, maybe a small team of people, like 2-3 people who are responsible for this. They are trying to juggle, literally juggle many elements to secure their businesses. Sustainability has come in as an additional one to fit in. And obviously, often this is not a high priority. This problem tends to be bigger and more frequent for SMEs than for larger businesses. Limited resources, resources in terms of money, time, skills, knowledge, know-how. This is the most common blocker, well recognized in the literature, and it come up during our interviews. Lack of resources is probably the major blocker for sustainable transitions of SMEs. Cost is very specific blocker and has like two phases. Some of more sustainable technologies are more expensive. Many of them generate more value compared to traditional technologies in the longer term, in terms of shelf life, quality, cost effectiveness, risk, and so on. But often the initial cost is significantly larger. The other phase is connected to the operational side of the business. New, more sustainable approaches, adopting a circular business model, can be more complex and costly in terms of management and planning processes. This one is tricky. If you do it in a wrong way, you might start losing competitive advantage. Imagine you would like to be more green. You find a point in your process where you can generate some value for society or nature, and let's say you have done something to optimize to do it, yes? But it costs you a bit more. And at the same time, your competitors are doing exactly the same, but in the old way, and they have slightly lower costs. And now, if you do not increase your prices and maintain the sales level as before after this increase, of course, you will start to lose your competitive advantage. Why? In the longer term, your competitors who use the old linear ways of doing the business will accumulate more profits than you. Okay. Let's talk about the culture. This is the major blocker. Funny enough, it can be also a major enabler. I'll tell you more about it later on. Organizational culture generally refers to the values, beliefs, philosophy, habits, and attitudes of the managers and employees. So values and beliefs, all people in the company. I will just give you a couple examples. SMEs owners or managers might have different risk perceptions. A strong risk aversion can hinder the development of sustainable solutions, even following the evaluation of the benefits associated with its implementation. Another interesting aspect is connected to the long-term thinking. Complexity and the fact that many sustainable solutions need a significant initial investment requires long-term perspective thinking. And this is purely a cultural aspect. Resistance to change keeps business models locked in their conventional configuration, and many constitute a major bottleneck into micro-small companies. Some SMEs managers might have a positive attitude towards sustainability, while others might not. Well, obviously, that might be a blocker or a neighbor, while working for environmentally conscious company might motivate some employees. In this case, the culture will be an enabler. Others are more reluctant or perceive green practices as an additional workload, and that will work as a blocker. Trust is another good example. Lack of trust puts people off from sharing knowledge about product information amongst companies and forms a barrier. And again, it's a purely cultural issue. Although we start to see that more and more customers would like to have more sustainable products and services, we still have a problem with customer demand on the mass market in the construction. The transition to a circular economy requires a shift in consumers' lifestyle and behavior. Customer demand is an issue. Maybe that's my fault, maybe we need to learn how to verbalize our needs as a customers. Maybe we need to start to talk about it to entrepreneurs from whom we buy services. The lack of government support, effective legislation. I mean by that funding opportunities, training, effective taxation policy, laws and regulations. This is widely recognized as a significant barrier to the uptake of environmental investments. This blocker is connected not to an organization, but more to the environment of an organization. Linear technologies are widely established in the current business practices, and they're keeping the economy locked into the current form. That creates a whole bunch of issues. Transforming linear old businesses would require new sustainable practices to be integrated into current linear business models. And this is the challenge. I would like to give you a practical example from our research. A company developed new waste management practices, very beneficial for the company. And they had to deal with suppliers who sent their products in purely designed packaging, which generated a lot of waste. Environmental costs, like negative impacts on public health and environment, are not factored into the price of the products. That means that business as usual products are often unfairly cheaper in compared to more sustainable propositions. Suppliers and partners might be reluctant to get involved in innovative circular economy processes. I can provide some practical example from our research. We know about problems with obtaining a mortgage on buildings built with the use of some sustainable technologies. Okay, I told you about some blockers. There are many more challenges. They have very different origins. They show up on the different levels, and they get tangled up together, creating truly wicked problems. Okay, let's talk now about the enablers, because this is where our opportunities lay. The sustainable solutions, if they are developed in the right way, are more cost efficient in terms of time, money, and material. It helps to maintain the profitability or build better market share if the company decides to offer better prices. Over 50% of interviewed leaders showed this as an enabler and told stories of successful development. What is the key? It's not that you will take any sustainable solution and you will be cost efficient. These entrepreneurs we interviewed are agile. They are looking for specific points where they can create the value for nature or people and for their company. And they decide to act. The projects sometimes are smaller, sometimes larger, but accumulation of the efforts pay off at the end of the day. When we interviewed construction leaders, we are particularly interested in if the fact their companies are more sustainable help them to win customers. 45% of them were providing the examples when the fact they invested in sustainability helped them to secure contracts, although only 30% were reporting visible customer demands. Culture issues can be a major blocker, but also can be a great enabler. I talked about it earlier. Here I would like to highlight that 81% of interviewed leaders reported this aspect as a major enabler. Of course, they did not verbalize it this way, but they say more about what they value, what nature is important for them, what kind of motivation they have to try to do more. But no, it was always associated with their values and beliefs. That was like their intrinsic motivation. Transition to more sustainable business models can be tricky and complex. This is well recognized by literature. I know it from my professional experience, and it come up in our interviews. If you cannot have a larger transformation project at once, start with something small. Start with baby steps and learn, then undertake more serious actions. This is like exercising every day. If you do it every day, you'll be healthier and you can exercise even more. Same is with sustainability. This is the last enabler in my today's presentation. If you would like to truly want to build more sustainable company, you need to have a strategical approach to this. It's well back up in the literature. The simple strategy is a foundation for the success of sustainable transformation. Okay, a few practical tips at the end. Have a simple strategy in place. It doesn't have to be a rocket science. It can be something practical and simple, but at least you need to know what do you want to achieve. For example, reduce production waste by X% in Q1. You need to know how you are going to do it, what steps you need to undertake to achieve it. You need to have measures in place, and you need to have resources and to secure the development. If you got this, act and measure. For sure, you will learn something new. Capture the learning and simply repeat the process. If you cannot develop the large changes, start with something easy. Use the continued improvement. Try to improve sustainable practices regularly, like every day or every week. Book an hour per week in your calendar to look after sustainability matters in your company. Measure your progress. This one is quite important. Start to communicate your actions to your customers, to employees, and other stakeholders. Tell them what you are doing and why. What is your motivation? Why this is important? Don't work alone. That's the complex matter, sometimes very, very difficult. Find people who can support you. Last but not least, remember it's about people, planet, profit. So always start in the place where you can start to build your competitive advantage. That will help you to have even bigger impact later on. Okay, folks. Thank you very much for listening. That's me for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Witold. I think this is very useful. So it wasn't easy for us to run the surveys and during pandemic. And I just want to mention we started working on this in 2021, and our blocker was pretty much the same as everyone's blocker. So okay, lack of time. We're busy, but what we feel that what we need to do, we need to just kind of empower ourselves. So what my take out of your presentation is that use waste is really good idea that you share, and the example of this bottle, 5 years ago probably when that bottle of water, glass water used was on a shelf, I probably wouldn't buy it. So customer demand was low, but now most of the people are buying this stuff rather than plastic. So things are changing. But I want to bring into the conversation Olivia, because we will be talking about the practical like solutions, what you've done in your business. And I've seen your presentation already, but please tell us a little bit more about what you've done in your business, give us a little bit of background, and maybe so we can use in our businesses. Olivia, now your time.
Firstly, thank you so much, Witold. That was a wonderful presentation. What we did, first of all, we're starting small scale, especially in small and medium businesses. Sometimes you don't have the kind of investment needed for huge, giant corporate changes instantly. We began with a thermal installation project with painting roofs black to save heating costs for one of our clients. Much more cost efficient because regular installation is highly expensive. You need more labor for it, more time. It's more invasive. Whereas painting a roof black, it's not for every building, depending on what kind of insulation is already in place. But this was something very effective we found in our company. Alongside digitalization, it's the march of time, the march of technology. That's something I definitely think every company needs to get on board with. Paperwork is no longer in. It's all about everything being online.
Fantastic. Can you share the presentation with us
Yeah,
and show
of
us
course.
the I've seen the roof and that
Yeah.
is sometimes, as Witold mentioned, that sometimes solution doesn't need to be so radical.
Anything, yeah. Okay,
It's coming up. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
great. Okay. Just a little bit of background on no case study. This is just a bit about Circle. We're fairly new, fairly young, from 2014. We're construction professionals offering a comprehensive facilities management service. Yeah, and it's about corporate sustainability and the top-down effect. So these are the main people at the head of our company. The market pressure of sustainability is coming full force now. This is from domestic and international regulations. The court, as Witold mentioned, the government as well, and new regulations are coming in place. Resource drivers, as people in construction, we have a supply chain that's all changing. Prices are going up, especially shareholders, investors, market drivers, which are consumers. Some of them depends what consumers you're trying to your target audience is for. Is it people who want low cost and don't care about sustainability, or if you're going for higher cost products with more sustainability focus? And also competitors, because now with sustainability being a form of branding and a unique selling point of your company, this is how you stand out to your consumers. And social drivers, but this isn't as much applicable to us in construction. And yeah, speaking of the top-down effect, the meaningful and long-term change to company ethos needs to come from the top to the bottom. You can't expect any true and meaningful change without everyone getting on board and making. This is just something vaguely describing what Circle does. We've began essentially changing everything to digital. All the human and admin aspect is being slowly erased. This is not only more efficient cost and time-wise, but also obviously for the environment. All right, the definition of sustainability is the quality of not being harmful to the environment and depleting natural resources, and thereby supporting long-term ecological balance. What does that actually mean for us? Because obviously it's all well and good having that out there, but how can we actually implement that into business? Well, I mean, sustainability essentially becomes a business threat. I mean, we want to be sustainable, but truly it's a threat. We need to adapt to this, and we need to work with the new market expectations, or you will fall behind. You can see this with, say, any big companies like H&M, and their rebranding as being environmentally friendly, using recycled plastic. All the big companies, this is what they're going for. Adaptation can be through operational efficiency and can lead to market growth through exploiting the sustainability route and branding as our business strategy. Right, so what did we do? So our first initiative was an eco-thermal insulation project. And here we have a picture of the roof painted black, belonged to one of our clients. This was in the north of London, I believe. For GDPR, I won't be mentioning any client names or direct locations. Okay, so the details of the project. The client had a poorly insulated roof. There was some existing insulation, but they wanted a solution for winter months. The typical insulation is made of hydrofluorocarbon, which is very effective. It's the most commonly used in the industry. However, during its production, it releases a lot of emissions. It's cost effective for us in some ways. However, it's expensive to buy. It's expensive to install. Also, we had a high client flow this winter and autumn. There was a strain on jobs, and we didn't have much time as we would like to perhaps install the insulation. So what did we come up with? Well, the solution was painting the roof black. A very simple solution, but something effective. Right, so the black thermal paint absorbs solar infrared radiation as opposed to white paint, which would reflect it. Think Greece, where they paint all roofs white, so they help keep the houses cool. But we did the opposite. As the sun shines brightest around 3 to 4 hours a day, this absorbs the infrared radiation, allowing the inside of the building to heat up much faster. As the building is hotter inside, this aids in electric and gas conservation, as the boiler would turn on less, and reduces energy bills for the client by decreasing the heating needs. Now, this qualifies us for money-saving rebates from the government. I'll touch on this later. There is a lot of funding and grants available if you want to do these sort of things, or if you've already done them, then highly recommend applying for them, and I'll touch onto that a little bit later. During the winter particularly, this black still absorbs some radiation, which melts the snow, and then, pun intended, there's a snowball effect. As more snow melts, more heat is absorbed into the roof. So here's just a graph of what happened. So in September, October, this is before we had the black paint and it was the regular roof. This is the amount of times the boiler turned on per month. This was when it was below 18 degrees. That's when it turned on. And you can see in December, January, after we painted the roof of the client black, there was a decrease in amount of times the boiler turned on. It's not anything huge, you know, black paint isn't revolutionary, but it's a difference. And after a while, once you do many of these sort of things, the profit does add up. And again, as Witold did mention, it's not about doing anything revolutionary and huge. Here's some analysis of what we just saw. There is a causation with the application of black paint. The number of times the heating turned on decreased around 10% to previous results. The overall reduction in heating costs for the client created a higher profit margin for us compared to the typical installation methods, which require a higher labor cost for installation and also supply chain costs. It's much easier to source the black paint as opposed to installation and tools that will be needed. So the economic factor, growth and profit maximization, can be combined with social and environmental issues, which leads to a snowball effect from positive consumer interaction as a sort of guerrilla marketing, because obviously we're saving money by doing this, which is a direct benefit. An indirect benefit is because we have a positive image in consumers' eyes, more willing to spend money because of the kind of values that we are showcasing. I just wanted to say, the black paint isn't a solution for everything. This is because the building was initially poorly insulated, so it had low emissivity, so the heat could actually pass through the roof. It wouldn't be effective for roofs with thick insulation because the heat would just stay at the top and wouldn't entirely pass through. So there are obviously some cons. It's not a solution for everything, but it's food for thought. Sustainability doesn't have to have a huge investment. It just requires some creativity in your thinking, some outside of the box. I think people have this view that sustainability is expensive, or we can't do it, we're a small business, we can't invest in this. That isn't true. It just involves some thinking, some digging, and exactly attending events like these, creating a conversation, and taking the first steps to creating a more sustainable business with higher profit. The second thing was reducing the fuel costs of our fleet. I think this is the first thing people think of regarding sustainability is cars, vehicles, you know, fossil fuels. So what we did was digitalized our fleet management. However, the issue with digitalization is that staff need to be trained. There's obviously issues encountered, little bugs along the way, you know, facilitating the training and then the downtime, pulling out employees out of the job. It takes a while to get accustomed to digitalization. And also there's costs associated with it. We needed a new HR personnel and compliance and consultant to implement this training. It may not always be viable for some businesses to hire new personnel to implement the training, so that can be a learning curve as well for new digital systems. However, overall, we found that the profits created from digitalization greatly outweighed any cons. We can track usage of the vehicles, the mileage, fuel costs, and then also track the optimal route to avoid traffic for our fleet. Yeah, there's in-depth fuel tracking reports to separate necessary idling and excessive idling, which we found particularly useful, and we could identify employees who were excessive idlers who would stop by, at pit stops. We then implemented meetings, one-on-ones, solving the issue in a human, grassroots way. Again, nothing huge, just having a chat with people. We could identify, like, guys, this is a problem, no more excessive idling. Again, educating people and then creating this kind of work culture focused on sustainability. And also, this may be a cheaper alternative to buying electrical vehicles for SMEs. Electric vehicles are a huge investment, so digitalization is the first step to that. Here's just an example of what we see when we have that digitalization. We have the activity summary. We can see, again, there's no license plates, so I've just changed it to the vague names of Mercedes, Jeep Commander. But yeah, we can see who does excessive idling, who's stationary, who's moving. We can also see our mileage per day and traffic counts at times. Sometimes it's a necessary evil, obviously, to go through certain routes, but this way we can target and actually have achievable results instead of just saying, And as I mentioned before, there's lots of funding and grants available. This is just a 3 of what's out there for you. And these are targeted at SMEs. So there's low carbon workspace, construction industry, training board. Some of these are very competitive and difficult to get, which is why I'll just get some stuff I mentioned about this. Which is why it's important to have existing strong environmental knowledge in your company if you're applying for something like this. I think it's great to bring on a sustainability consultant in your company, or someone who's in the know-how, or someone who's competent in applying for this sort of funding. And especially with attending events like these, this is also great evidence to show you're getting involved, you're curious, and you're taking the steps forward to then be eligible for this sort of funding for your company. And what that one's up to 1,000 to 5,000, and then that one at the bottom is up to 20,000. The amount of things you can invest into with 20,000 is huge. You can invest in new sustainability projects with that, or whatever else your heart desires. Further funding is the utilization of apprenticeship schemes, which is actually what Circle utilized. It's really great if we need some new people in the office, like as we mentioned before with our digitalization. We needed new people and new upskilling of our recruits. This is just between, the applications for this are still open if anyone is interested for this grant, which is up to £3,000. Highly recommend it. If anyone's interested, then it's just on the government website and you can apply. Key takeaways. Why is social environmental responsibility important in marketing? So people have become increasingly aware and concerned about social responsibility when it comes to corporate governance and the behavior of firms. An enhanced company image from being sustainable impacts profitability favorably. So corporate social responsibility extends to social marketing strategies. You can't just be sustainable and then not broadcast it. People need to know what you're doing, creates a snowball effect. You get more money, you can invest in more projects. So green branding, social media is very important in this. You need events like these, podcasts, newsletters, everything to shout it out to people. Here's what we're doing. Here's how you can get involved. Here's how you can support this. Final outcomes of our projects. We reduced carbon footprint by using less heat for our client. By digitalizing our fleet as well, we decreased use of fuel, which actually contributes to the UE goal to reduce emissions by 20%. We're part of that. Not necessarily doing anything huge, but if everybody takes a small step, then that builds up. Higher end clients and consumers are more educated, looking for businesses that share these values, different partners and shareholders. There's a very big partner that we can name that from Circle, who has environment, like sustainability, as one of their key points that they want and targets they want us to hit. So obviously hitting these sustainability targets opens you up to higher end clients and higher end consumers who have big businesses, and they want you as part of that. Company transformation is possible through taking small steps to create an escalation effect and contribute to the global effort through changing workplace culture. And yeah, that's it. Just wondering if anyone has any questions. Apologies if I rushed through.
Olivia, that was so empowering. I mean,
thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, this is like this is something that definitely will help us to actually get moving, get actioned. You know, I wasn't aware of so many funds. Obviously, with the funds and grants, there is a time involved because we need to actually find the grants, you need to apply for the grants. But I think by having a little bit of small steps, let's find out. Maybe let's try it. Maybe it will be rejected once or twice. My question is about the grants. Actually, do you have like did you get the funds, and how long took you to get to this? Like, is it a complicated process, or is all depends, or how many hours you need to spend to actually apply on this? So a little bit of on this.
I mean, one of the funds we're looking at is an R&D grant. It's for research and development and new initiatives. It takes a very long time, I must say, to make a presentation about it, showcase evidence that you've actually done this. Takes a very long time. So it's been a few months in progress now, but obviously reaping the rewards. We haven't quite finished yet with the R&D fund. But yeah, I encourage anyone to just grab at it, apply. You never know what's going to happen. But yeah, R&D fund. I recommend checking that out and applying for it.
R&D fund, fantastic. But also my comment is I'm not running a construction business, but I like your first example of simple solution with this paint. So in general, and I can see it in other areas of the business, is that when it comes to sustainability, we can have a kind of three approaches. So simple solution is the first to go. Let's look at what you can do to be a little bit more sustainable. That won't cost money. That won't cost too much effort. It's just, okay, we can do, let's say, XYZ. We can reduce plastic. We can do something that won't eat up our resources. The second part is the solution with compromises. We need to compromise. Okay, we need to start compromising, like a little bit more expensive. Like, okay, because we actually have something that will help us to do it. And the final one is customized solution, long-term investment that will obviously take us. It's quite a lot of resources and get us going as a sustainable and organization. And if we start with simple one, then we quite easily can move to one with a little bit of compromises. But that is just my thought. And Olivia, Witold, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. That was my pleasure.
Cheers. Thank you.